Welcome to the Speaker Meeting, a space where we break the silence one story at a time. Every episode, you'll hear from someone who's been there, through the struggle of addiction, the turning point into recovery, and the journey after. Because no matter where you are, you're not alone. Recovery is possible, and hope is real. My hope is that by sharing these stories, you'll believe it to be true. My name is Chibi. My sobriety date is April 5th, 2024, and this is the Speaker Meeting.
My name is Liz Herrera. That is a married name. I'm not married anymore. And I actually asked you to have my name as Liz Torres Herrera. Torres is my maiden name. My sobriety date is but a year, August 11th of last year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
That will be tomorrow, actually, as of this recording.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being here, taking the time. I asked you, we have a tradition on this podcast where the guest will pick a random tarot deck and a random tarot card and from that deck, and we use it as a way to ground the conversation, essentially, not in any kind of like divination sense.
Okay.
And the card that you picked was the Ace of Pentacles. This card represents new beginnings rooted in growth, opportunity, and abundance. It's about planting seeds for a more stable and fulfilling future, whether that's in your finances, relationships, health, or personal development. And in recovery, it often signals the fresh start that comes from building a life on solid ground, where each step forward is an investment in long-term stability and joy. So I'm curious how this card resonates with you as it relates to your recovery journey.
It seems so spot on. It's kind of wild in a way because, I mean, I think all things are relative. You could say, I've been working on my sobriety for years, even though I only have a year of consistent sobriety. But I also feel like a baby, it's still a new beginning. It's still, I still feel like I'm learning to do things as a sober person.
Yeah.
So this card seems just kind of perfect in a way. And then this idea of planting seeds, I think, is a beautiful metaphor for how one is best equipped at, or it's the best approach to having a life of ease, because you're not grasping very hard. It doesn't have to be a switch, or it was dark and now the light's on.
Yeah.
But and on that, additionally, is that it takes effort and nourishing and cultivating to keep those seeds alive.
Yeah.
Going.
And growing, flourishing.
Flourishing
is what we want.
Yes, we can only hope.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the suit of pentacles is one that represents the material world, as it were, and not material necessarily as in coins, right, and money, but anything of this earth, right? The earth, the clothes, the things you can touch and feel, and so I really do appreciate that metaphor of putting seeds in the ground as it relates to recovery, because I don't know about you, but it starts as a little seed, and kind of how you were saying, like, you can't just plop it there and she's good to go, right? So you got to really tend to it.
That's absolutely true. Yeah.
Well, let's take it back to the beginning. You say you feel like a little baby, but let's go back to when you were actually a baby. No, not that far back. But what was your relationship like with substances or addictive behaviors at the beginning, and how did that evolve over time?
Yeah, I think that in some ways it was from a very young age, maybe not a baby, but before I was being actively socialized. I was raised in a Catholic family, and I had trouble hearing the message, of agreeing with things that I was told. I came to be a contentious person, one that was always questioning authority. And in all kinds of life, I thought that I should be, live in a teepee, or I should have been a hippie. But in my high school years, I started to have a hedonistic kind of perspective on life. And because I didn't have a connection with any higher power or any kind of desire to have a higher power connection. Mm-hmm. And so I just saw life as I was going to make it abundant in good things according to what I thought. Mm. And so I was experimental and I was a risk taker. And I think I can still be that way in a healthy way. Mm-hmm. But when I was young, and I say young and dumb, but I
young, dumb, and broke.
Yes, exactly. I was that. And I took all kinds of chances and experimented with different substances. And I liked alcohol right away. I remember being in high school and experimenting with psychedelics more so, and marijuana and alcohol and cigarettes. But, I remember at a young age thinking, well, I don't want to smell like smoke or nicotine, so I'm just going to smoke for a couple of years. And it didn't even last a couple of months.
Okay.
But then in order to stop smoking, I told myself I'd rather be smoking marijuana than smoking nicotine. So it wasn't really that healthy of a perspective either.
Sure.
And so I took it as a adventure. Alcohol and drugs for me were an adventure and something to indulge in. Mm-hmm. And bad things didn't start happening to me right away. Mm-hmm. So I lived that life, and I was lucky in the sense that I liked learning in the academic environment. And so I did well in high school, and I wanted to go to college and be a self-sustaining citizen. Mm-hmm. So I got a degree in accounting, and, I did what I was supposed to do in that regard.
Yeah.
And then I didn't really think much about life, I think. I questioned authority, but then I wound up conforming. I wound up getting married and thinking to have a kid, and, entering the workforce as a person, mm-hmm. Instead of joining the Peace Corps and not having, I don't know what that looks like, but
yeah.
And I think I had a healthy relationship, but I think that one of my problems was that I just got bored with, or was intolerant of, kind of a peaceful life. I didn't have drama in my life. I had a husband, and I had a daughter, and I had a job, and I did that. And I thought I wanted something exciting in my life. And so I all of that lifestyle, I started having an affair with a person that I work with. And that was at that point in my life, I had been married about 10 years. And I wasn't drinking heavily every day, but I was drinking daily. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I probably wouldn't have said that I'm alcoholic. But when I look back on my life, I feel like I was an alcoholic before I was even drinking, in the sense that every time I drank for effect.
Okay. You're always chasing that
high.
That high. Okay.
Yeah.
Would you say, just the way that you're describing it very much is, I feel like we're kindred spirits here, because of this idea of like, I need to experience all of life, especially the things they told me that I should not experience. Those are the things I want to experience the most. Like, let me get out into the world.
Absolutely.
Even the way that you mentioned, like the Peace Corps, just anything outside of this life that I've been told that I'm supposed to live.
Yeah.
Do you feel like maybe there was an addiction to the rush, to that uncertainty, that idea of living on the edge, and the kind of high that gives?
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm. I didn't know. Yes, absolutely. The unknown, if I could keep my cool in some sorted situations, and Absolutely.
I think there's something to be said about that. Like this, kind of like you said of, I think I should have been born a hippie. Like 1000%. I see these, documentaries or whatnot where people just like got in a bus and drove across the country and, what was the thing, like free love and all of it, right?
That's
like,
true. That aspect as well.
And to some extent, I think there's some romanticizing around that life versus the reality of it.
Yeah.
And I think we do it with substances too.
Yes.
I know I definitely romanticized the fuck out of heroin.
Yeah.
I was like, you putting a needle up your arm, that's so, ooh.
Edgy.
Yeah, something. But you were saying that like, you didn't, you weren't drinking excessively, but you still felt like looking back that you would still consider yourself an alcoholic during that time. You think you were aware that you were like drinking to get that high or using to like that you were chasing that high, or you just...
I think so, because even though, and I didn't mean to mislead or misconstrue the situation, but even though I wasn't drinking excessively every day, there were times when I would drink excessively. And I was usually a happy drunk, but sometimes I wasn't. And there was a time when we were coming back from somewhere downtown, and I had gotten in an argument with my husband at the time, and I wound up jumping out of the vehicle. And I didn't, he was not going fast. We were in a neighborhood situation, and there was even a speed bump, so we weren't going maybe more than 20 miles an hour, but I still jumped out of a vehicle that was moving, and I scraped up my face a little bit. There were accidents. There was, even before I got married, I totaled a vehicle. It was a Jeep Wrangler, and I liked going just a little bit too fast around this particular corner going home, because I could feel the wheels on one side of the vehicle lift a little bit, and it was a rush.
Chasing that rush, yeah.
I liked it, and it was something that I was always pushing limits in that regard, and I lost control, and I went off the road, and I hit a tree.
Wow. So, they say that the difference kind of between it being, I don't want to say social, but like the line that gets crossed when it really goes into like addiction and it being a problem is when it starts to cause problems in your life. That's true. Right? If you have a couple of beers every day and it's not really causing you any problems, well, then it's not really causing any problems, right? When did you begin to notice that like, oh, this lifestyle, these choices that I'm making, they're causing problems in my life?
It's funny, not funny, because I always thought of myself as a quick learner, but not in this regard.
Okay.
I was, a lot of things had happened that could have been wake-up calls. I think I was maybe I'm going to be 50 in March, and I think I was approaching 40, and I stopped playing soccer because my heart rate was too high.
Okay.
So thinking back on it, to answer your question quickly, I guess I would say this is 25, maybe 7 years ago. I was arrested in 2015, December of 2015, and I was convicted in the summer of 2016, and I was released in the summer of 2017. But during that time, I almost didn't make it. I had a couple of those MTRs, motions to revoke your probation. I continued to drink, and I had a breathalyzer in my vehicle, and there were times, and I just thought, I was not going to let the government tell me what to do.
Yeah.
And so I was going to continue drinking at night when I was at home. And, but at this point I was getting a 6-pack a day and maybe a bottle every 3 or 4 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so by the time that night was over, by the time it was time for me to go to work the next day, I couldn't get my vehicle to start sometimes.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And I still didn't think that this was a problem. I thought I was managing quite well.
Yeah.
I was going to work. I didn't lose my job.
Right.
I got my kid to school.
Mm-hmm.
She had to breathe in my breathalyzer one time.
Wow.
At the point that I got it, we already had cameras in the vehicle.
Okay.
But the eyeball of the camera had fallen, I had noticed. And gosh, I was old. So, I mean, I was of the age that should have known. So I wasn't young and dumb. And I wasn't broke, but man, I was dumb.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had her breathe in there. They didn't catch that particular wrongdoing.
Uh-huh.
But I remember going to AA in 2016 and 2017 and being mad about being there. And even after I got out of trouble, I continued, with the legal trouble, I continued to drink because I thought I wasn't ready to admit that I was an alcoholic.
Mm-hmm. It's funny because sometimes we measure the effects of things in our life based on the standards that we've been raised on, right? Mm-hmm. And, oftentimes the societal standard is you have a partner, you have a house, you have a job, your life is fine. Mm-hmm. Whatever else you do, doesn't matter, right? Because you're going to work, you're keeping your job, the bills are paid. Everything must be fine in your life, right?
There was a time when I called myself a functioning alcoholic.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was a gray period where, I was starting to say I'm a functioning alcoholic, but there's no problem. Mm-hmm. Things like that didn't make sense. Yeah, absolutely. And it was the thing that changed was in 2020. I started to value life. And I don't know that it was a particular experience. It was the beginning of COVID, and the world shut down in mid-March of 2020. And my birthday is March 18th. And a friend of mine and I had gone to Miami for spring break, and we had a plan to go down to the Keys and drive around and indulge. And while we were there, we both drank too much, but my friend got hurt. We were in the Airbnb apartment place, and they had slick floors, and I think she had taken a shower, and so I think the feet were wet, and she slept and she hit her head and she got a big gash. But we were drunk and, we
laughed it off.
We did not tend to her body.
Wow.
And thankfully she was okay, in the long run. But we continued. We slept it off, and we got up the next day and we were tired, but we put some alcohol down us, and off we were off again. Mm-hmm. And before I went on this trip, I had made a doctor's appointment to go get a checkup because I knew my blood pressure was high. Mm-hmm. But I wasn't stopping drinking.
Right. But clearly alcohol wasn't the reason for that.
Absolutely not. That was my medicine, in fact. And so, when we got back, it was Friday the 13th. We flew back on March. And that Monday, everything was shut down. So I had that doctor's appointment that scheduled that next week, and I never made it because I wasn't sick with COVID or any kind of ailment like that.
Right.
So that was like the best and worst year in some ways, because I started, from the time that I was arrested, there was already a service called Mini Bar or something like that. That was a mobile delivery service of alcohol that I took advantage of because I wasn't able to drink and drive anymore. Mm-hmm. Yes. So anyway, I drank a lot that year. We worked from home, and I would have cases delivered, cases of 3 or 4 6-packs and multiple bottles, and I was making that regular purchase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the pandemic was definitely fodder for a lot of addictions.
Yes.
I would regularly come down the stairs and, be like, coffee maker, freezer full of tequila. Coffee maker, what kind of day do I want to have today? And so I can completely understand how, with the world being the way that it was, and the way that the pandemic and that isolation kind of accelerated a lot of people's addictions.
Yeah.
I'll say definitely mine. It could cause you to start to look at things a little differently.
It did.
Mm-hmm.
It did. Yes. And so when things started opening up, I finally went to the doctor.
Okay.
And my blood pressure was so high, they didn't want me to leave the clinic that day.
It was that concerning.
It was that bad.
Uh-huh.
But, I really didn't want to be on medication because I thought drugs are bad. Though prescription drugs are bad, but this is okay in all of my wisdom. Yes.
Yeah.
Scary.
So that was because you had gone to AA before, you had legal troubles before, crashes, all of these things. What was then the moment or series of moments that led to, okay, I think I need to change something here, right? Like that realization of like, I can't keep doing this, I don't think.
Yes. It happened over the course of that year. And it was in that December, in December of 2020, I went to the doctor. Mm-hmm. And there's a fear of, I'm looking at your beautiful skeletons over here. There was a fear of death in some ways, a fear of premature death. And even though somebody might have been looking at my life in my earlier years thinking that I might have been trying to annihilate myself, I saw it as an expression of the joy of life. I wanted to live life to its fullest. And I started to realize that I was getting to an age where I saw some other relatives starting to become sick. And I didn't want to be sick. I wanted to, my dad had been diagnosed with cancer in 2005, and he's a relatively healthy guy. He's a marathon runner, and he's alive, and he's beat cancer a couple of times. And through his sickness and his treatments, he had been told that he had the heart and lungs of a 30-year-old, and they attributed it to his physical conditioning of training for the marathon, not his diet.
Yeah, sure. Everyone has a flaw.
That's right. That's right. And so it inspired me, and I started to think about my living longer, maintaining the habits that I had. And I realized that it wasn't sustainable, and I didn't want to, I wanted to be a healthy individual.
Yeah. So you had mentioned that you had gone to AA begrudgingly, but had gone to AA before. And oftentimes it's said that like once someone goes to AA, that little voice is always kind of there, right? Let's go back to our metaphor. That seed has been planted. Whether you decide to tend to it or not is your call, but that seed has been planted. Once you were like, okay, I need to start living a healthier lifestyle because I might die, early. What were those kind of first steps to really attempt sobriety?
I think you hit it right on. Because in that time when I was invited to go to AA by the judge, I would
strongly suggested.
Exactly. I would purposely go to different locations because I didn't want to form friendships and relationships. But I went to one on the far northeast side. I can't remember where, Nacogdoches maybe. And I could tell that these people were friends amongst each other. And one person hadn't been around for a while. And then, so there was the conversation went something like, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. What have you been up to? And, oh, okay. And there was a genuine concern for the person. And that is the seed that was my takeaway from that experience that I really didn't realize at the time, but putting alcohol and addiction and recovery on the side for a moment, I realized that I wanted what they had.
Yeah. Wait a second.
Yeah. So but I didn't want it to be an AA is what I thought. I wanted it to be in a spiritual community.
Okay.
And, like I told you earlier, I didn't really jive with Christian teachings. And so I sought something. It was like these little seeds had been dropped for me my whole life. And I just wasn't picking up on it. Because when in college at UTSA, I took a course called World Religions. And I was kind of a seeker. I kind of wanted to have a spiritual experience. And I didn't know how to do it. And so to me, that shortcut was LSD. It was mushrooms. But when I was trying to be open-minded in this course, and I found that Buddhism was the closest fit for how I saw the world and the values I had at that time. And I also remember that one of the tenets of Buddhism was to have a clear mind, not to pollute it with intoxicants. And I thought, oh, well, I can be a Buddhist then. And so off I went. But because of the seed that had been planted from this AA meeting and that observation that I had of these people caring for each other, it inspired me to go walk into the temple of Risha Kosekaya Buddhist temple that had been in my neighborhood for decades. I had been driving by it and never walked in.
Okay. Would you say, so, because it's interesting that you say that kind of like genuine concern was what did it. Would you say that you felt like you were lacking people? Like, did you feel like you didn't have people in your life that genuinely cared about you?
It's funny that I didn't feel that way. I felt like I was often asking myself, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Because the people that tend to have the problems that I created in my life had different conditions growing up. Maybe they came from a broken family, or maybe their parents were also addicts, or different big traumas in people's lives caused people to go the way that I did. But my dad's a deacon in the Catholic Church. They're together. They didn't argue. They're very supportive. But they also didn't know how to relate to me. What I actually came to find was that my mom had at one time asked me, what's wrong with you? And I don't think she meant it in a malicious way. I really think she had trouble connecting with me and really didn't understand why I would do the things that I did. And I wanted to know. Yeah. But it sat with me, and it's something that I asked myself often. My friends, on the other hand, were probably suspect because I chose them through the lens of this clouded mind. Okay. Yeah. And I think that they did care about me, but they really wanted me to join them in the different things.
In the revelry.
That's right.
Let's call it that.
Yes, there we go.
Okay, so I noticed you said you went to the Buddhist temple, Risha Kosekaya, in search of community.
Yes.
Not in search of recovery.
That's truth.
Not in search of sobriety.
That's the truth. You caught me.
So what happened?
What happened? Gosh. A lot happened there, but I think what the biggest thing that happened was a shift in my thinking. And where I started drinking excessively was out of a search for enjoyment and excitement and a fulfilling life. And I came to understand that it's not really fulfilling. And I also had a large amount of guilt at this time because I had an affair that was discovered. I started when I was 10 years married, and it ended almost 5 years later. And I saw myself as a homewrecker. I asked for the divorce. My ex-husband didn't want a divorce, but I didn't have a lot of self-worth at that time. And that's when my addiction really took off, because I was trying to drown that out. Mm-hmm. But I have a daughter, and I was always trying to earn her love during this time of drinking. And she was a young girl, she was 8 years old when we divorced in 2014. And I couldn't make her love me. But two things. A Japanese lady taught me the word for parent in Japanese, the kanji, the symbol that represents parent, is a symbol that also symbolizes a person standing on top of a tree just watching. That's it, just watching. And I started approaching my parenting differently. I don't think I'm answering the question that you asked.
That's fine.
But I started to see my life fulfillment as being the best person that I could be.
Okay. And you attribute that kind of change in perspective to the Buddhist teachings that you learned at the temple?
I did.
Okay.
And I also realized that I couldn't be my best person when I was drinking.
Mm-hmm. And because you said that this was, early 2021?
Yes.
And
I actually went to Rishoko Sekai when I was in 2017.
Okay.
I was still in probation. I got to the point where I was wearing an ankle monitor because I kept
that's the life.
blowing dirty.
Because that's the life.
That's the life.
So you started going in early 2021.
I started going in 2017.
Well, okay, we'll say that. You started going there, and at the beginning you mentioned that your sobriety date is a year ago.
That's right.
So during that time, when did you? I mean, I don't want to say find the rooms of recovery, but like, what happened that led you to make that shift and that change in your life,
the
right?
Commitment.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Because I kind of did this thing for so long, in 2021 was the first year that I really started giving recovery a chance. But I would do like a month sober and then I would drink, and then 2 months sober. And I got to the point where I had 6 months and I drank in 22. And to answer your question, I think it was a mental exercise, because what I found was that for me, in my experience of drinking as an alcoholic, I could pick up, I could drink one drink today, and maybe I could next week, and maybe I could the second week. But 3 weeks from today, I would have 3 or 4 or 5 drinks. And I didn't feel good the next day.
Yeah. It would always lead to that.
It would always lead to that. And I thought, well, is that the life I want then?
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Okay.
And I felt like I was just making excuses for a long time. Yeah. Was
there anything else that kind of gave you the confidence and the courage to commit to long-term sobriety?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, even a year ago, I think my brain wanted to play tricks on me and say, "Oh, it's okay. Go and have a drink. It's okay. You're with your family. They're now telling you it's okay to have a sip." And they've seen me at my worst, and they've at one time would tell me, "No, please don't drink anymore."
Yeah.
So I don't feel like it was any distinct or specific experience other than I don't want to go back to that anymore. I don't know.
When did a kind of recovery practice make itself part of your life?
That was in 21.
Okay.
Actually, yeah, this is a little conflicting, I think, if people really were to do the math and scrutinize my past to some extent, because I started in 21. I started, this was that January that I had dry January, and my heart rate got to a healthy, or the blood pressure, got to a healthy rate. And I started going to AA trying to not be angry. And I did that by going with somebody who went to the Dharma Center, and we would talk about, can you restate that AA statement, but from a Buddhist perspective?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, and at the end of that year, I wanted to have something that was not an AA. It was a real struggle for a long time to not get agitated during an AA meeting.
Yeah.
And I didn't know of a Buddhist recovery meeting during that time. Okay, I'm lying. I did know of one or two. There were, one was a little bit inconsistent, and it was at the Blue Heron. I always think that's a funny name because I always think of heroin. Blue Heron is the...
It's a fish.
That's interesting.
Is there? No, it's a bird.
It's a bird. It's a bird. Yeah. That's not palapas. Anyway, and there was another man that had, and they were using the Refuge Recovery book at the time, and I asked the permission at the Dharma Center, the Buddhist place that I go to, if I could start a recovery meeting there. And if you read Refuge Recovery, I think that Noah Levine will advocate for something like 4 to 6 months of sobriety when you start a meeting like that. And I wanted to start a meeting. I felt like that would be the thing that would get me to commit to my sobriety. And so a friend of mine and I started the meeting at this recovery at the Buddhist place in October of 2021.
Okay.
And I did not have the 4 to 6 months. I think I was a little short. I think at the time I had 3 months. But he had the required sobriety. And so that's how we started. That was in October of 2021. And it started out as a monthly meeting. Okay. But the first one was in October, and by November we said we need to do this every week.
Yeah. Because we need it.
Because we need it.
Yeah. At the time, did you continue following the Refuge Recovery book, or was that when you switched to Dharma Recovery, or what was?
We used Refuge Recovery for a little over a year, actually. The reason why was because we wanted to attract other people who could find value in the program. And looking at we were aware of those 2 books. And there was a lot more popularity around the Refuge Recovery book.
Okay.
So that was the only reason why we chose it.
Sure. I discovered Noah Levine back in college.
Okay.
In the heyday of my heroin addiction.
Oh, wow.
And it was his Dharma punks, where I'd been interested in Buddhism for a very long time. And I was like, okay, I'm a punk rock anarchist. let me read this book. And it really caught my attention, right? And I wasn't even honestly searching for recovery at the time at all. I was very much kind of how you described it, like I was trying to live my life to the fullest and experience everything I could experience at the time. And so I never linked it directly to recovery. I even got the other book, the workbook Against the Stream. And again, never really linked it as Buddhism as a path for recovery. But very much like you, I had the feeling of like, well, if I really want to leave a Buddhist lifestyle, I really can't be doing all of this over here. So I don't know, one or the other. Right now, it's that one.
Yeah.
But I do very much appreciate the teachings in Buddhism and how they so seamlessly connect to teachings and recovery practices of all different kinds, right? 12 steps, SMART, whatever you want. You can link it to that. And it's almost like it's this perfect marriage of spirituality with practicality, right?
Yes.
How have you kind of married that? How does the Buddhism part of it feed into your recovery?
On a moment by moment basis, I think, because, I had mentioned to you one of the things that I had done in my active addiction was commit adultery. And it was I tore apart my family. And I carried that label for a long time. I was a homewrecker and I wasn't worthy of love because of these things. And Buddhism teaches you that it's not a label. I mean, it's something I did. It was something in my past, but it's something that I don't have to carry any more than a murderer is a murderer. I think we can take it to that extreme even. It's just an aspect of somebody's past. It's like somebody who had COVID a couple of years ago. We don't talk about them today like they have COVID, you know. And every moment, it's this idea of being reborn, I think, that every moment we have the opportunity to change. And so there's a lot of negative self-talk that happens even after you get dried out from alcohol.
Yeah.
And some of those things for me look like, well, I'm lazy, I'm a procrastinator. And we have to be really careful and listen to the things that we say in our head, because we can come to believe those things and then our actions follow those thoughts. But if I can be aware of that traffic going on in my mind, I have the ability to change every single moment. I don't have to be lazy. I don't have to procrastinate.
Yeah.
And it's imbued in my life, really. There's so many aspects to it.
Yeah. Well, and to be clear, like we are kindred folk, okay? Like we are speaking the same language right now. I totally see it and believe it. And I ask the question in case there's anyone listening that maybe isn't aware, like you and I, recovering Catholic, recovering addict, rebelled against the church, all of these things, right? Like I get it. I 100% get it. But if there's someone listening that, doesn't know anything about Buddhism, maybe has tried AA, but doesn't really feel like they're connecting to the program or anything like that. Like, how does someone begin to learn? I think it's so much easier to find a Christian or Catholic or Baptist or whatever other denomination and just walk into the church and be like, hi, tell me about, it's a little harder when it comes to Buddhism.
That's true.
So how could someone that's listening to this right now and thinking like, I don't really know anything about Buddhism except, he's this fat, jolly guy and but it's sounding like something I want to know more about, right? Like, how do you get into that?
That's a great question. I think it's different for, I don't know how we're the audience. I should have asked you this.
I don't either.
If you're in San Antonio,
thank you to the dozen of you that listened.
I'm going to be one. If you're in San Antonio, I think we have a lot of options. And I've come to really appreciate the Zen Center of San Antonio. It's a open door, and there's a lot of things to learn there. I think that it can be intimidating for some people because there's a solemnity, there's a quietude in Zen, and so sometimes things aren't explained very explicitly. I would advocate for somebody who's in San Antonio and is able to travel. Or even if they're not able to travel, I would encourage them to go to Risha Kosekai of San Antonio. The reason why
it's
is
a wonderful temple.
It is really nice.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because they're kind of loud, and they're a very social bunch. They have a wide offering of classes, and the Dharma should be offered free as it is there and at the Zen Center as well. But they have a basic Buddhism class that's run every Saturday at 10 o'clock. And there's also meditation before that. If they're not in San Antonio, I would point to a book. It's called Buddhism Plain and Simple. Okay. And I wish I could...
Easy Google search. Actually, I have Google right in front of me. What am I doing?
Awesome. Thank you. Stephen, maybe. I think before I told
Steve Hagen.
Steve Hagen. Thank you.
There you go.
Awesome. Yeah.
And again, this is me asking from the perspective of someone that doesn't know anything about refuge or recovery dharma or anything like that. Like, how does recovery in Buddhism work? Do you have a sponsor, right? Are there steps you have to follow?
Yeah.
What does that kind of recovery look like?
That's a great question. I like that. Things I think are not so linear in Buddhism. In the refuge recovery and in other Buddhist programs, we call it a wise friend. When there's different tenets of Buddhism, and no matter what sect you're in, there's certain truths that are in all of the sects of Buddhism. And one of those is an idea of what's called the three treasures, or it's this trilogy of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. The Buddha, the man, the Dharma, the teachings. And that Dharma is a word that is teachings and truth, but it's also a word that can be used for all phenomena, all experience. And then Sangha is the group of people, the community. And the Buddha said that this is the most important aspect of your practice. And so if you're asking, what does that look like? I think it's critical to be involved with a community of fellow believers that have a common set of beliefs. I think it's encouraging and inspiring and supportive. And so there's that. And then the other thing is, just at a very basic level, and what I love about Buddhism is that it can be very basic, but it can also go very deep. And so I guess for someone who's new to it, I would like to share with them the concept of the Four Noble Truths. And it can be said through the lens of addiction or not. And so because of our topic here today, I'll say it through that lens. And those truths are that addiction causes suffering, or there is suffering in life. And the second is that there's a cause for our addiction, or there's a cause for suffering in life. And the third is that recovery is possible, or that the liberation from suffering is possible. And then the fourth is that is through the Eightfold Path. And it's almost a script or guidelines for how to lead your life. And that Eight Noble Path in English uses the word right, R-I-G-H-T, to describe all of these 8 things. And it's not in the context of right or wrong, but in the context of it's harmony with the truths of Buddhism. And that is the impermanence of everything and the interconnection of everything and the idea of no self. And so if you are looking at things, the first one's right view and right speech and right action. If you're looking at the world through the lens of impermanence, through interconnection, then it can lead one to have actions that are more harmonious with their environment. And I think that can lead you to sobriety and recovery in a beautiful way, that your life might improve if you didn't take so many dang drugs.
Right. Who knew? Your blood pressure might go back to normal. It's me. Yeah, it's thank you for that kind of like breakdown of it. I think that was very understandable, for someone that maybe doesn't have any knowledge of it whatsoever. So you're approaching 1 year of sobriety tomorrow. By the time this airs, you will have had 1 year of sobriety. What does recovery look like for you today, and how do you keep moving down that path?
Yeah. I think it's being connected to a recovery group. For me, I've come to love my Buddhist recovery groups. We still do the Monday meeting, and now we're in the recovery Dharma, and the Zen meeting on Friday nights. Those are my bookends to my week. But I also like to mix things up and go to an AA meeting every once in a while. And there's a couple that are my favorite, my preferred groups, that I like to go to. And so that's part of my recovery program, is to be engaged and attend these things. It's also not being content with my spirituality. I can be content with my job. I can be content with my monetary things, with my relationships. But I think that there's always room for spiritual growth. And how I work on that is by learning more, by exploring more in the Buddhist. You can go very deep into these ideas of just, that the truth of suffering, or what is right view. One thing that I'm reminded of is this idea when I was first, kind of on this roller coaster of sobriety and non-sobriety, relapsing. I would think, gosh, it was a combination of intention and effort. And I remember telling somebody I have had two sponsors. I do have an AA sponsor right now, but I had one previously. And I remember telling her that I had the intention of staying sober, but then I relapsed. And she told me quite bluntly, well, you didn't have the intention. I mean, if you really had the intention, then you wouldn't have drank. And I thought, gosh, okay. It took me a little while to really wrap my head around that, because I really believed it was my intention to not drink. But there's a thing of one of the factors of the eightfold path is effort, right? Effort. And I think what a lot of people talk about today is right mindfulness. And I think that's great. It is one of the factors of the eightfold path. But I think what a lot of people in popular culture tend to forget about in this realm of, mindfulness is, okay, well, what else? I mean, it can't just stop at being aware of telling myself that I'm lazy. Right before mindfulness is right effort. And right after right effort, right mindfulness is right concentration. So we can choose to focus on what we think about. I think I'm going on another rant.
No, it's not a rant. I think it really encapsulates how 360 isn't the right term of it, but how it really does show that it takes a complete view of oneself, right, in order to walk this path, right? It can't just be thinking the right thoughts. It can't just be saying the right things. It can't just be, doing the right, like it is a full internal and external connection that is required, and that you can kind of like learn by following these teachings, these simple suggestions.
Yes.
So thank you for taking us down that, right? And like it paints a very clear picture as to how the two, how Buddhism and recovery really do live side by side, and very much how it is said about the AA program, right? Like, yes, it's there to, get you to stop drinking, but really the program is there to get you to live a better life.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
It doesn't stop at the putting down of the substance.
Absolutely.
And the Buddhist path and refuge recovery, Dharma recovery also in focus that. We're like, yes, we're here to talk about substances, but let's talk about you. Right?
Yes.
And get to the root of that and
That's
get you in a right, sane, healthy mindset.
It's so critical, because that the drinking or whatever that addiction is just a symptom. And so you're absolutely right. You can stop drinking or drugging, but unless you address that underlying cause of what took you there, you're going to keep going through some sort of cycle.
Welcome to my sitcom called I'm the Problem.
Nice.
But yeah, very much so. Well, thank you for sharing all of that, right? And the journey that you took. I think you've planted a few seeds in some listeners' brains, hopefully, of the possibilities that are really out there and how you can arrive at those paths to start taking them, for sure. Are you ready to get into some rapid fire?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm game.
Fill in the blank. Recovery has given me.
My life back.
What's one word you'd use to describe your recovery journey?
Interesting.
What's a daily habit or ritual that keeps you grounded?
Sitting on the cushion.
If you find yourself struggling or triggered, what's the first thing you do?
Take a breath.
This or that, morning routine or night routine?
Both.
Meditation or movement?
Meditation.
Talking it out or writing it down?
Talking it out.
Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Name one book, song, movie, or television show that's been meaningful to your recovery.
The Untethered Soul. It's a book.
The Untethered Soul.
Yeah.
By
Michael. I know first names. It's a song. It's a bird. Songbird.
The Untethered Soul by Michael Allen Singer. You're so close. A piece of advice you return to when things get tough.
Gosh, it's going to sound Christian. This too shall pass.
This is true. And what's one phrase or mantra that you keep with you, that you carry with you?
I was thinking about this the other day. This is not rapid fire. It's ah-ing, ah-ing, ah-ing.
Ah-ing?
It's not a word.
Okay.
Somebody gave it to me in transcendental meditation. It's a thing. And I was pursuing this in my college years. And she gave me this word.
Ah-ing.
Ah-ing.
Okay. And then if someone hears your story today and takes one thing away from it, what do you hope it is?
That they have the potential to be better, to feel better, to be at ease.
You were just a little seedling. Just to, continue to harp on the metaphor.
I love it.
You're a little seedling, and with a little nourishing, you too can flourish.
It's beautiful. It takes one to know one.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story today.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Of course.
Pleasure.
That's it for this episode of The Speaker Meeting, breaking the silence one story at a time. A huge thank you to our guests today for sharing their journey with us. Recovery isn't easy, but conversations like this remind us that we're not alone and that change is possible. If you're struggling, know that there is help and there is hope. You don't have to do this alone. For immediate support, you can reach out to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration helpline at 1-800-662-HELP. That's 1-800-662-4357. It's free, confidential, and available 24/7. And if you'd like to share your own story, I'd love to hear from you. You can submit your information at geminisproductions.com/thespeakermeeting. And if this conversation meant something to you, help us spread the word. Subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who might need to hear it. The more we talk about recovery, the more we remind people that they are not alone. Thank you for listening, and until next time, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and remember, recovery is real.